Welcome back to Dano Does Things. This week I tried to flat wet felt for the first time. It did not go perfectly, but that is okay. This channel is about learning, so I'm going to tell you what I learned. For wet felting, you'll need to lay down a towel and then a water-resistant surface. I'm using bubble wrap, which actually worked quite well. You'll start by laying your wool down in layers. Now, my first learning moment, I definitely didn't take the time to make sure everything was as even as I should have. Pay attention to your wool and how it is laying. You want nice, even layers. The alternating layers of wool will be perpendicular to each other. Another learning moment, if you want your edges to be even, pay attention to the overlap at the edge. If you don't want super wispy edges, make sure each layer goes right to the edge. For my fourth layer, I went in with some details, but could have for sure done another layer of laying down color to make the piece a bit thicker and more sturdy, and then done a fifth layer of details. I actually liked how the details came out in my final piece, but keep in mind it's never going to look exactly how it looks like when you lay it down dry. Wet felt has a bit of a mind of its own and will take on an abstract look while you felt it. Next, I laid down my netting. Now, this is from an old laundry bag and was not ideal as it seemed to catch the wool underneath. That may have also been caused by not using enough water to start. You want to wet down your piece with warm water before you start with the soap and felting. You want to press the water in so that the wool isn't fluffy anymore, and I didn't add quite enough water at the beginning, which made the felt a bit wonky to start. Once it is wet, you'll grab your soap and soap up your hands and start very gently at first rubbing your piece. Now, the soap I used was also not ideal. Most felters recommend using an olive oil soap, but I wanted to try with what I had at home first. Not that it didn't work per se, but I think that the proper tools always make the end piece a little better, or at least a little easier to do. I have also heard it is recommended to only move your hands in circular motions, which helps keep things evenly felted. I definitely could have spent longer on this initial felt. Felting takes time, and if you cut corners, it'll definitely show. When you pinch your work, you want the fibers to not pull apart too much. The next step is rolling your piece. You want to roll the whole thing, towel and all, up tightly and roll it on a sturdy surface. My desk that I use for filming is super wobbly, so I would have benefited from moving to a more sturdy surface. Make sure you are rolling all sides from all ways. I started by rolling the piece up vertically and rocking the bottom portion about 30 times, then flipping and rocking the top portion 30 times again. I then unrolled and rolled it up horizontally and did the same 30 on top and 30 on bottom. Again, I probably could have repeated these steps a bit more to get a tighter felt. Now, if you want your piece to be a bit soft, this is a good place to stop and rinse your piece to get all the soap out. If you want it to shrink a bit more and get tighter, you can throw your piece, literally balling it up and throwing it on the table repeatedly to continue the felt. Otherwise, rinse it off. You can give it a good rinse with a splash of vinegar to ensure all the soapiness is gone. Then roll it to squeeze out the excess water and leave it to dry. Now that it is dry, I'm going to mount it really simply for display by attaching it to a piece of watercolor paper with the edges artfully ripped to size, with a piece of foam board cut smaller than the piece between to add some depth. As I said, this was my first attempt at wet flat felting, and while it didn't go terribly, I definitely learned a lot. Hopefully this video will give you some solid expectations on how your first felting might go, and we can learn more together when we try next time. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we'll see you next week.